In this video, I'll be showing you how to take a roasted chicken stock and reduce it down and reinforce it into a concentrated version that you can go ahead and make a more concentrated or flavorful sauce out of. Here I have about 20 quarts, a little bit less, of roasted chicken stock and 2 quarts of white wine. So you're basically doing a 1-to-10 ratio of wine to your chicken sauce or any stock that you're doing. Now here I'm just going to whack up some onions, and here I'm leaving the skin on. And this is basic mirepoix prep. I'm going to go through and hack up the carrots as well, leaving the skin on too. The celery, I'm going to trim off the leaves because the leaves tend to be a little bitter. And once I trim the leaves and trim down the celery, I'm going to add that to my mirepoix as well. Leeks are an optional step or optional ingredient. Just cut off the root end, and you want to use the white and light green portions. You want to slit those leeks down the center and check to see if they have any dirt. And if there's dirt there, you want to remove it just by rinsing it under cold running water. And once you've rinsed the leeks, you go back and just chop them up into chunks and add it to your mirepoix mix. So here you can see I have a large amount of mirepoix, almost the same amount that I'd use to make stock, and this is going to help reinforce the flavor. Obviously, if you're doing a smaller batch at home, you can use less mirepoix as appropriate. And you don't even have to use mirepoix. This is just a nice optional step to reinforce the flavors. Now here I have some chicken fat, and the chicken fat actually came from my chicken stock. Once I let it cool, I skimmed off the fat at the top, and then I simmered it until it stopped boiling, and then I knew I had pure fat. So I'm going to melt that pure chicken fat down into a rondo, which is just a large open pan, and I'm doing this over multiple burners. And I'm going to add the onions first because onions have a high water content. And as you can see here, I'm not being exact. I mean, if a little bit of carrots get in there, it's not a big deal. But I want to roast down the onions first, mainly to cook off the water content contained within the onions. I'm just moving them around with a flat edge wooden spoon or wooden spatula. And as I move them around and as they start to gain color and lose their moisture, I'm going to add the rest of the mirepoix and continue to roast. Now, the fact that I'm using a large surface pan is going to allow me to roast these a lot quicker. Now, you can also toss these in some fat and roast them in the oven, just as I demonstrated in the stock making videos. Now continue to roast over high heat, shaking and stirring, getting a nice color. And once I have a decent color, you want to deglaze with your wine. You can use either red or white. Here I'm using white because of just the final application. And once you've reduced the white wine by about half, you want to add your stock in right on top. Bring your stock to a simmer, and you see all that stuff that's stuck to the inside of that? You don't want to waste that. That's good. That's a good few ounces of stock easily. In this case, a couple of cups. So you want to scrape the inside with a rubber spatula, and to make sure you get it all out. Add some aromatics. Here I'm adding 1 bunch of thyme, 1 large bunch of parsley, and this can be any aromatics that you like. Some peppercorns, there's about 20 to 30 there, and just stir it around and then bring it to a rolling boil. Now, as you can see here, I have a zone in that pan that isn't boiling, and that's where all your scum is going to collect. And I want to go through and just skim that scum using a ladle, just dipping the edge of that ladle underneath that scum and clearing it off. And the faster you can reduce this, the better, because the longer you cook your stock, the more flavor. You don't really lose flavor, but the flavor will change. So you want to reduce it as rapidly as possible. So you want to use as much heat as possible and constantly skim and constantly reduce over high heat. And you can use a large, if you're doing this at home, you can use a large roasting pan that you put over 2 burners. Now, once it's reached the proper reduction, you want to strain it first through a china cap, which is a conical strainer with a little bit larger holes than a fine mesh strainer. And here, after doing a couple of pulls with a sauce pot, I'm just going to pick it up and dump it through. Now I'm going to use a wooden rolling pin to smash all the ingredients through to extract as much liquid and flavor as possible. And then to make sure I get out all the fine particulate matter, I'm going to skim through a chinois, which is a large fine mesh strainer that I'm showing here. I'm going to tap the upper rim of the chinois with any sort of device. Here I'm using that rolling pin to make sure I get out all the particulate matter. If you push it through, then you're going to get a cloudy sauce full of particulate matter. Now, as you can see here, I've taken the original 18 to 20 quarts of roasted chicken stock that we started with and reduced it down to just around 8 quarts, giving us a much more intensely flavored stock with a little bit added viscosity. We can now take this reduced stock and use this for any number of sauce making techniques that we'll visit in future videos. For this episode's show notes, check out stellaculinary.com/SNS12.